Hey there, Internet. My name's Luxander, and today we are talking about the boogeyman of the trans community. We're talking about Transtrenders. We're talking about Transtrenders today because Natalie Wynn from the channel Contrapoints put out a video just yesterday about Transtrenders, and I really like the work that Natalie does. I want to kind of touch on that briefly before going into the whole concept, I guess. I think a lot of the work that Natalie has done is really interesting, and I think that people in the past who've thought that she is against non-binary people, I couldn't really see where that was coming from, and I think that this most recent video of hers really illustrates that she isn't anti-non-binary. Basically, I think the video that she made is really good, and I really recommend that you watch it because I think that her character, Justine, in particular, illustrates a lot of the thoughts that I have had about the concept of transtrenders. If it's not obvious enough, I don't really think that a transtrender is a thing that really exists in any kind of meaningful way. I have been called a transtrender because of the fact that I am non-binary. I just think it's really weird because I've been out as trans for 11 years and I have dysphoria and I have a medical diagnosis and I have had medical transition, so it's a weird thing. So I've been out for a pretty significant amount of time, and I've been experiencing my transness throughout all of this last 11 years. I've also had plenty of conversations with people who are kind of exploring their identity and trying to figure themselves out and trying to decide whether medical transition is something that's right for them. I have talked to a couple people who are kind of curious and unsure about their gender identity who, after talking to them for a while about it, came to realize that they probably are just cis and want to express themselves in a different way. So I have had conversations that don't necessarily end up with the other person realizing like, oh my god, I'm trans. Like, it's possible to explore your gender and decide that it's okay for you to be the gender you were assigned and be gender non-conforming with your expression, and it's also possible to realize that you're trans and to realize maybe that you're non-binary and this part of transition will work for you, but this part of transition won't. It's a thing where humans have varied human experiences, and I don't think that people trying to figure out who they are kind of stepping on my oppression in any way. I don't think that people are trying to get in on the oppression that we experience. I think there's a very slim possibility that young people may think that the aesthetic of being trans is kind of cool, and maybe they want to try it out. I think that teenagers are the only people who could conceptualize of being trans as something that is cool and has no negative side effects, or negative ramifications, I guess I should say. I don't think that we should punish teenagers, however, for exploring their identities, and I don't think that we should gatekeep teenagers and say, if you're just in the process of figuring yourself out, you can't call yourself trans, and you can't explore what it's like to be part of this community. Being part of the community and talking to us in the community is how people figure out, oh, this sounds like me, this doesn't sound like me. It helps them figure out where they are. And so I see a lot of the transtrender rhetoric as essentially, I think it's people who are so wrapped up in the pain of them being trans, and it can be very painful for some people. I have had my share of painful trans experiences. I think those people get upset at the idea that there are people who have a happier journey. I wonder sometimes if it's that people just want to have someone that they feel better than. And I'm not gonna ascribe a bunch of motivations or anything to people. It just really seems to me like I don't understand why you need to feel like, oh, I'm real trans and you're not real trans. Like, you're just creating a hierarchy where you are better than people who are non-binary. If, like, binary trans people call every non-binary person that they meet a transtrender, then it kind of just seems like you want to be seen as valid through the cis-normative lens, and that the fact that we are breaking that binary system that you are clinging to for your validation makes them feel uncomfortable. It's really hard for me to figure out where exactly this comes from because I don't experience that kind of like jealousy. If we open things up and let people identify however they want with or without dysphoria, and if we give people the room to breathe and to explore their identities and see what it's like to be part of the community and hear what we have to say to learn from that, I think that you'll have a lot more happy results. You'll have a lot more people who are happy as trans people or as non-binary people who don't identify as trans, whatever. I just really don't see the downside to that model of just letting people explore and saying it's okay if at the end of your gender exploration you found out that you're actually cis. Because I think those people who went through their own gender exploration and decided that they are actually just cis and that's fine, those people are going to be more empathetic to the process and going to have in their minds like, oh, this is what it's like to feel kind of confused about your gender, and just because I came out and decided that I'm cis doesn't mean that some people don't have more intense feelings than I had. Like, the only thing I can think of that makes people so upset about the idea of people trying out new identities and maybe going through a phase of being non-binary before they realize there's something else, like, I don't see how that challenges anyone else's transness. It's just taking this group and saying, okay, this group is a little bit broader than we thought it was, and that's okay. I don't get why people feel the need to be so defensive and protective of, like, ooh, the trans community is like a niche club, and if you're not this dysphoric, then you're not allowed to get in. It just seems so unnecessary to me. I don't think that transtrenders are a real thing. The idea of that is people explicitly saying, I thought that being trans looked cool, and I decided that I wanted to be cool, and that's what that was. I don't know that that's a real thing. If I'm wrong about that, I would welcome examples of that, but I think for the most part, it's just people trying to figure out who they are and trying to break gender binary norms down. Like, there are trans men, people who are assigned female at birth who identify as men but still enjoy wearing makeup in a time where cis men are now starting to get into makeup and are some of the most successful beauty gurus or whatever out there. But because the trans man was assigned female at birth, if he chooses to engage in something that is not typical for his newfound gender, then that makes him a trend person somehow. Like, you're not really trans because how dare you wear makeup? How could that not cause you dysphoria? And it's like, does makeup cause cis men dysphoria? Or is the purpose of wearing makeup for cis men to alleviate dysphoria? I don't think so. I think it's just a form of self-expression. I just don't understand why people make such a big deal out of it. And I think that if you're the kind of person who just says all non-binary people are transtrenders, like, I don't know what to say to that, because I'm non-binary and I've been out for 11 years and my feeling non-binary has not changed in that time. I initially thought, whoa, I'm feeling this gender weirdness, I must be a trans man. And then a few months later, I learned what non-binary was, and I was like, whoa, that's correct. That makes me feel better. Like, my phase was thinking that I was a trans man, and then since then, I've been comfortably out as non-binary, and now we have situations like Jeffrey Marsh, I think is their name. So we have this person on Twitter who is older and who says, like, I'm non-binary, I've been non-binary, I'm older, this is not a trend. If you look at us who have been out here for a long time, who have been comfortable in our identities as non-binary people, and you say, you're a transtrender, like, I have nothing for that. I don't see how what I experience could possibly be anything other than trans. Trans permanente, not trans trend. It is not something that's gone away from me, and I don't expect it to go away. I don't think that's how it works. Basically, I find myself very frustrated in this conversation, and I think I have made myself fairly clear about how I feel about the subject, and so if any of you have other opinions that you would like to share, then I would be glad to hear them, as long as no one is being hateful about anything. I just really don't think that being angry at teenagers is healthy, and I don't think that it's productive for the community, and calling any non-binary person a trender is just, you're just transphobic to people in your own community, and I just don't think it's a good thing for anyone to hold that in their hearts or to spread it around to other people. And that's that. That's going to be all from me today, though. If you like this video, please give me pretty analytics to look at and comments to read. Find me on Patreon, subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications, and I hope you have an okay day. Bye. Thank you to the patrons who support me, and I want to give a special shout out to The Gay Agenda, Amber Music, David Walter, Jenny Swindles, Gretchen Becker, Wellington Marcus, Nicolette Klassen, Jess Zendrex, Mr. Atheist, and Pine Snake. Y'all are really just so awesome.